Hey guys, I've re-recorded this video now a few different times because I'm quite frankly having a little difficulty um figuring out the right way of wording everything that I want to put in this video. I don't want to make this a super long video, but I want to be able to share with you guys why I'm making this decision and that there's going to be a couple of changes that I'm going to be making to the channel as a whole going forward. So, let me start with this. If you guys use Unreal Engine and you guys like it, you guys are comfortable with it, it has features that you guys are interested in using, I would say stick with Unreal Engine. I'm going to be speaking from my own experience because, quite frankly, we may have different experiences, and I'm not trying to get any of you guys to switch away from Unreal Engine. I simply want to speak from my own experience and tell you guys the way that I am seeing things and the reason that I am making the changes that I am. So, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it. Let me start with this. I switched to Linux about a year or two ago. I've overall been very fond of it, and it's not because there's anything inherently wrong with Windows or using Windows. It's that Windows for me has, quite frankly, seemingly had an awful lot of bloat, and a lot of unnecessary services that I don't really need that now come pre-installed in Windows. Windows has just kind of become this thing that I don't really want on my system. When it comes to Linux, Linux is very simple. I choose what gets installed on it. I can even edit the entire interface as much as I would like. It's honestly not nearly as difficult as many people might think. And I'm quite frankly just very comfortable with using Linux. Now, one of the main issues, however, that I've had with Linux is actually with Unreal Engine itself. All of my software, for the most part, works fine. There's little issues here and there, but Unreal Engine has consistently been a bit of a headache for me. Unreal Engine, for since I switched over to Linux, has always had little things. Things like you had to build Unreal Engine from source, which ended up creating very large file sizes just for the engine alone. It would sometimes take anywhere from an hour to several hours, depending on the engine version and the hardware you were running on. And one of the main gripes that I kind of had for a long time is if you wanted to build for Windows, you couldn't build for Windows unless you were on a Windows system. So you actually had to have a Windows VM and then kind of jerry rig it a little bit. Or you had to have a Windows system that was capable of running Unreal Engine so you could package it that way. And if you're all right with doing it this way, that's fine. There's more issues than that, like OpenXR. If you don't have a VR headset hooked up, you had to kind of do this workaround where you had to open Visual Studios and then open up the Unreal Editor that way. Um, there were certain plugins that just couldn't quite install correctly. The new Fab plugins doesn't quite work right on Linux. I can't fully speak for 5.6, and I'll talk about that in a second. Um, and to be fair to Epic Games, a lot of these issues have been fixed, at least in the Unreal Engine 5.6 experimental. Where issues really started arising for me is in the official Unreal Engine 5.6 build. And I've heard a lot. I've been looking at the forums, and apparently I'm not the only one who's run into issues with 5.6 on Linux. Some people have had it where Unreal Engine just won't start up at all. The issue that I had is that 5.6 will start up, but then it lags down the whole computer to the point where even doing things like hitting Alt Tab to get out of Unreal Engine takes about 60 seconds before it finally takes that key press and actually does something with it. It's just kind of become a very unusable mess for me, and it could just be my Linux operating system. But I've had to consistently find workarounds in order to continue using Unreal Engine on Linux that it's not really worth it for me to continue using Unreal Engine. And there's more to it than that. I've been playing a lot of games on my Linux PC, and most of them work great. I've even been playing some games that, quite frankly, I couldn't really see myself playing a couple years ago because I had different tastes in games at the time. Games like FTL, which I'd only played a couple of times from a buddy. Games like Celeste, which I never really played before, or Dead Cells, Hollow Knight. I even started playing Ori the Will o' the Wisp. And the one thing that I kind of realized as I was playing a lot of these games is these are all games that don't really need to be built in Unreal Engine. Now, I don't know if any of them are built in Unreal Engine, but what I mean by that is Unreal Engine is an engine that prides itself on creating very high quality visuals. It was even made to produce a lot of movies and shows. Mandalorian is one of my favorite examples. I was very fond of the first season. Um, it's really fantastic for those kinds of things. But this isn't really a requirement for a lot of games. And the reason I originally got into Unreal Engine about 6 years ago was because at the time it was one of the better engines to use if you wanted to develop VR titles. And one of the things that now is the case is all the engines kind of support VR. Unity supports it, it's pretty easy to do. Godot supports it, also really easy to do, and Unreal Engine supports it. Um, so it's not really much of a that there's you have a lot of options when it comes to that. So quite frankly, I've decided that for me, I'm going to be switching to Godot because aside from it being a little more open source than Unreal Engine is, a little easier to modify if you really need to. One of the main things about Godot is it's a lot quicker than Unreal Engine. And even though it doesn't really have as large of a backing, it doesn't really have that same level of high quality visuals that Unreal Engine is able to provide. One of the main things that has pulled me to Godot is the fact that it's very user friendly and it provides all the functionality that's really required for a game. It doesn't need to be high quality. It doesn't need to have all sorts of fancy visuals or mechanics or anything like that. A lot of the things that you can do can be done in an engine like Godot. And so I really want to make this change to Godot. And more than anything, I'm also going to be making a change to the channel as well. Um, I might have mentioned this in a previous video. I don't actually know if I ended up putting out this video. I know this was a video I was kind of hesitant to put out, so but I'm going to be making a little bit of a change to this channel as a whole. I want to be able to still make tutorials for you guys. I still want to show you guys how you guys can make your own games, and I still want to show you guys how you guys can create captivating worlds and great games. One of the main things that has kind of held me back is I've kind of struggled to make my own games with Unreal Engine, especially since moving to Linux, because Unreal Engine has just kind of created all these problems. I even started making a game recently, Gun Mage, that ended up having a lot of issues, and now I can't even finish it because Unreal Engine 5.6 doesn't really work on my PC. 5.6, the experimental version, ended up having a lot of issues where I couldn't actually package for my Quest 2. Um, and I really want to be able to make these games for you guys in order to not only speak from experience from making these games, but I also want to be able to speak with the full understanding of everything that is going on in the game, not just from my perspective on the way that I have seen things, because a lot of the projects that I've worked on have been largely coding, a little bit of animations, a little bit of material. I've definitely touched on a little bit of everything in Unreal Engine, but I want to be able to speak from building a whole game from the ground up. And I think that with Godot, it'll be a lot easier to do that because it's a little more user friendly, and I will be able to kind of tone things back a little bit without having to deal with all the issues that Unreal Engine provides. Now, I know that some of you guys might not be interested in these Godot tutorials, and I hope that you guys will still find interest in my Unreal Engine tutorials, and I hope that you guys will still find use out of them as well for as long as Unreal Engine is around, maybe not permanently, but at least for a while. But I'm going to be making a transition to Godot, and I'm going to be making some transitions to this channel, so I'm a little more focused on not just showing you guys how to make games, but also showing you guys my experience making games fully from the ground up. And I'm going to be making more devlogs so that way I can show you guys everything that goes into making a game, not just how they're made. Um, so yeah, this is a bit of a different video for me. I'm going to be maybe not making videos quite like this, but a little less scripted than I had over the past several videos that I had that I had made. Even though they might not seem scripted, I had a lot more scripting behind them. It might not have been as great though. um, yeah. I hope you guys will still follow the channel. And I hope you guys will still find use out of the videos that I make and the videos that I have made. But yeah. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next reality.